Welcome to Divorce Mortgage Strategies, brought to you by the Divorce Lending Association, where clarity meets strategy in the financial side of divorce. Whether you're a family law professional, a financial expert, or someone navigating the complexities of divorce yourself, this podcast is your go-to resource for trusted insight into how real property and mortgage financing intersect with divorce outcomes. We don't just talk about houses. We talk about strategic solutions that protect futures. Let's dive in. Today, we welcome host, certified divorce lending professional Cindy Scobee and her guest, certified real estate divorce specialist Amy Alpeza.
Hello, I'm Cindy Scobee, and I'm a contributing host of today's podcast for the Divorce Lending Association. I'm a certified divorce lending professional, and today I have a dear friend of mine, Amy Alpeza, and she is also a divorce real estate professional. We've known each other for at least 10 years. I'm super grateful today that she's here to be my first person that I get to interview on this podcast. So first of all, I wanted to ask you, Amy, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and just a little bit more about yourself.
Thanks, Cindy. Thanks for having me on today. I really appreciate it. And I just love the work that you're doing with the CDLP, and just so thank you. But yeah, my name is Amy Alpeza. I'm a certified real estate divorce specialist with Windermere Real Estate. I'm based out of Washington State, primarily King County and South Snohomish County. So my background before I came into real estate was in construction and design. So I owned a construction company with my ex-husband. We ran that for almost 15 years. And, it really was a perfect foundation for my real estate career. And when I got my real estate license, shortly thereafter, went through a divorce, and I had 3 young children and just was kind of a mess and just trying to figure out what I was going to do. And so, I got into real estate thinking that was a great idea. And about 2 years into my real estate career, realized how important having information around the family home when you're going through a divorce is. And understanding as well that I didn't have all the tools, I didn't have all the information that I really needed when going through my divorce. And so that was like 2014. And then in 2017, I actually got my designation as a certified real estate divorce specialist. And then in 2018, I became collaboratively trained. And so for a lot of people, they may not know what collaborative divorce is, but that is something that's gaining a lot of popularity, not only in our state, but around the country and around the world, just as people are looking for different ways to dissolve their marriage and not necessarily cost as much, or just more amicable ways.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I did my collaborative training a year ago. So I've been able to also be in that space. And it's really interesting to see the difference of when there's litigation versus collaborative, and just the parties and working with both parties, and versus, just one side as a financial advocate versus a financial neutral. So, and that's great that you brought that up, because I definitely have a question about working with like both parties for you. So just knowing that each divorce is unique and everyone involved goes, on their own unique journey through this process. My first question is, what is your experiencing supporting clients who are dividing property?
Yeah, I have extensive experience. I feel like it's a good thing, because the more experience I have, the better I can lead my clients and provide just a more robust knowledge base on what they can expect and maybe potential outcomes. So, I haven't ran the numbers, but I would say I've probably worked with at least 100 different divorce cases throughout my real estate career. And primarily now, like within the last 3 years, my business, it averages, but I'd say between 60 and 80% of my clients are either going through a divorce or they have recently finalized their divorce. So yeah, I have a lot of experience with it. And yeah, I think my clients like that though, right? Like they come to me because they are kind of floating around and they don't know where to land. And of course, as you know, like the house is such a big part of their divorce settlement. and what to do with the house. And so, whether it's one party who's exiting the family house or whether they're selling it, together, it's giving them the, what is their primary goal, right? And of course, that varies if you're working with one party versus both parties. But then where are they going to go, right? And so there's at least one person looking for a new place to live. And oftentimes it's both, and oftentimes with children. So I appreciate being able to help clients through that process.
Well, and I think your bedside manner. I mean, I think that's key is from your experience. Clearly you just know how to be with these people and you meet them where they're at. The feedback that I've always gotten is just always so incredibly positive and understanding that you provide for them as they're going through this really hard time.
Thank you. Well,
Yeah.
and the feeling is mutual. I know that my clients say the same thing about you and so many other professionals, right? Like it's so important to have, like I tell people now, it's like, it's even more important to have a CDLP than someone like me in the beginning, right? You are the most important person that people should talk to, after, whether engaging their attorney and their support network.
Thank you. I think it's because the marital home is so emotional.
Mm-hmm.
Besides the
Yeah.
parenting plan, the kids and all of that, it's the house, it's the family house. And how's that going to work? And when people are so scared in this time where they're like, how am I going to be able to keep this house? Or where can I go next with my kids or for myself? And just being able to run the numbers and give people hope is so rewarding.
It is. And, I had a call with a client today. She's not a divorcing client, but a seller. And we were talking about inventory. And she said, why do you think we've had this big rise in inventory over the last year? Part of it, I think, definitely is people are just, they're ready to make a move regardless of whatever the rates are doing. But because the rates are where they're at, a lot of my divorcing clients can't refinance and afford to keep the home, right? Whereas like, 4 years ago, plus,
Yeah.
I mean, you and I saw that all the time where it's clients were refinancing one party off because they're, basically they have the exact same mortgage rate.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I do think that is part of it, but.
Yeah, for sure. Well, also just thinking about going back to the collaborative space is as how do you stay neutral when both spouses are involved?
So, I actually really pride myself on staying neutral. Even if, let's say, one party has, like, if they're not collaborative, I mean, even with domestic violence, like, I work a lot with DVPO cases or high conflict. So I tell people right out of the gate, like, I'm not here to relay unnecessary information about either party to the other one, right? And I'm here to help you guys work towards a common goal. Of course, that goal for almost all sellers, regardless if you're going through a divorce or not, is, sell their home as quickly as possible and for the most amount of money. And so how do we go about doing that? And so by stirring the pot is not going to help that situation, right? So I think because I went through such a high conflict divorce, it was many years ago, but that costs money, right? It's like that conflict costs money. And so my whole goal for my clients is to reduce the conflict regardless of whatever, phase of the process that they're in. With collaborative clients, it's not as big of an issue because typically they are working towards the same goal. That may not mean that they communicate very well. I mean, you and I have worked with lots of collaborative clients that they don't want to talk to each other, right? So just because it's a collaborative process doesn't mean that they're necessarily on the same page or that they like each other. It's more so that they've entered into an agreement where they know that they have to be fully transparent with their finances, their resources, what they want to do for the parenting plan. And so there's just not as much bad mouthing, if you will. I just think my role is I'm here to do a job. And I also say, like, the house is really the client, right? Like, I learned that a long time ago. I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. And I love that takeaway because, yes, the departing spouses are definitely my clients, but really I'm here to work for them by way of the house, right? Whether that's the primary residence or a second home. A lot of our clients here have rental properties, helping them figure out what's the best move. I think listening is the key part, right? So we always have to ask questions and then we have to listen. And when we have a high level objective of what they want to achieve, it's a lot easier to provide them options that are in line with their high level goals. And then, of course, working with you and someone who is a divorce specialist where they can help them figure out if they can actually achieve those goals.
And then what would you say is the most common misstep that divorcing clients or couples make in this process of what you're helping them with?
You know, it's different for everyone. A couple things that first come to mind though are filing too soon. So you and I see this on the back end because we've seen so many clients who rush to file for divorce and then they can't achieve their financial goals around the house. We see it less, if not 0% of the time in collaborative divorce. They typically try to come up with the process and the outcome before they file. It just gives clients a lot more options. But I also know that that's not a solution for everyone, especially where you have a protection order in place or you have high conflict. Sometimes you need to have those temporary orders in place in order to protect yourself, whether it's physically or financially. And temporary orders do that. So that would be one common mistake. I think the other one is just not realizing, not realizing the value of what someone like you does and how important that is to the process of their divorce and their settlement, right? So that's another thing. And then, using online valuations, right? Like I think the consumer is becoming more savvy, but sometimes I overestimate how savvy the consumer is because I'm like, oh, you would never go into mediation and take a Redfin, valuation for your home, but oh, people do it all the time. And, or, if it's, let's say, maybe the house is the only asset that they have, or maybe, maybe they don't have kids. And so they're going to just do it at the kitchen table and they're going to split everything 50-50. And then, one party's going to keep the house, but Redfin says it's, $300,000 less than what it really is. Like there's just, so those are probably the three things.
That makes
what
a lot
about
of sense. Well, and I think also Redfin doesn't know what they've done inside the house
right?
or the maintenance of the house. So to get your eyes on it, to be able to
Yes.
give them a proper value. And maybe actually, could
Critical.
you talk a little bit about in terms of, because you're looking at it from a marketability, if you were to put it on the market, even though they might want to
Definitely.
keep the house, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
100%. So first and foremost, I would say I always like to do a formal walkthrough with clients. So like you said, get eyes on it. I mean, there are certain properties where you're like, okay, it's a brand new house. They bought it a year ago. And I can look at all the pictures online and nothing's changed, right? But for the most part, that's not the typical client. And so having a walkthrough is really important just to be able to see the quality of finishes. A lot of times in divorce situations, clients have a lot of deferred maintenance, and that is a symptom, obviously, of the relationship itself. So when you get a look at it, you're like, oh, the fence is falling down and the roof needs to be replaced, or it hasn't been cleaned in 5 years. Nobody's cleaned the inside of the house in 3 years. I mean, there really are a huge variation in terms of quality and looking at what would we need to do to get maximum dollar for this property. And I think that's a tool that often gets overlooked because, like an appraisals have always been kind of the gold standard in divorce cases and in the court system, at least here in Washington state. I do recommend to clients, like, get an appraisal. Great. Go ahead and get one, but get a CMA too. So CMA is a comparative market analysis, which only real estate agents can perform. We do not perform appraisals. But appraisals miss a lot of, like, let's say granite countertops versus quartz countertops, or if you've got LVT flooring versus, solid hardwood floors, right? Like An appraisal typically isn't going to account for the valuation differences. And they're also not going to be making recommendations around, hey, if we do have to sell your home, or these are like, these are the 5 things that I'm going to recommend that we get done prior to maximize value, right? So, and then you can kind of look at and say, okay, well, these improvements are $50,000, but it's going to, bring you back $150,000 in, equity. So that's the other part where I just think it's really important to get a CMA from a qualified real estate professional who understands the market conditions and who can make those recommendations without it saying, okay, an appraisal might come in at 1.3, but if you put in $50,000 worth of improvements, you might be able to sell it for 1.5.
Mhm.
Right? So that's not going to be shown in an appraisal valuation.
Well, and you've testified in court too to support your
Couple
valuations.
times.
Yeah.
Yeah, a couple times. Yep. Sometimes they're written, sometimes they're in front of a judge over Zoom.
Mhm.
But I do think there is some strategy around that. Appraisals typically come back lower than market value, at least in all the cases where I've testified or even provided. So I think that there is some strategy where it's like, if you're the party who wants to keep the family home, then you're looking for a lower valuation, right? Because you don't want to have to pay out as much. I don't know
Yeah.
if you see that, but
I think I always tell people that, do you know what this is? And this is something you should very much know about and consider. And hence, I will loop you in because people get really focused. I think the first place they go is online, and
Mhm.
then the appraisal, and then the CMA.
Right,
And I'm like,
right,
it feels like that all needs to get flipped.
right. Yeah.
So,
Well, and it's the least amount of resistance, right? And especially where, as I mentioned, like appraisals have been the gold standard. So that's what attorneys will recommend. And the difference is because most real estate professionals can't do what I do, and they can't provide the same level of detail and information, and also just numbers, right? Like, I mean, my significant other is a general contractor, so I can always go to him and say, hey, what would this cost, in today's market, right?
mhm, mhm.
And that has been a really key element in terms of determining how much work needs to be done and if it's worth it for one party to keep the house or not.
Well, that makes me think about how are you different with your certification versus just being a real estate broker? Because I always hear, just call your lender that helped you with the house. Just call your broker that helped you buy the house. And
Right,
how I feel like that's very different. You're going to get a very
right.
different feedback and person who's going to support you than what like you do. So can you just speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, we were at a meeting last month and there was a family law attorney who spoke up. You were one of the divorce lenders in the room, but you're the only one who has a CDLP and the other one did not. And family law attorney said, well, I would never work with anyone who's not a CDLP because of the level of information and knowledge that you bring. Part of it is just awareness. Like people don't have the awareness around the need for what you provide. So it's education. And I think like these podcasts are great because it's just spreading the word, talking to the people who really get it. Like you and I have been around for a long time where it's like not everybody gets it and not everybody wants to get it, right? And I also think too, like in family law, people are in crisis mode all the time, right? And so part of it is, and the family law system is also very overworked. Like we do not have enough family law attorneys or paralegals, staff, right? And so I think that there is a level where it gets pushed to the back burner because they're focusing on so many things at the same time or so many different clients at the same time that it's like, oh, we'll deal with that later. I mean, how many times have you had a call where somebody's like, I have mediation tomorrow and I need to figure out if I can afford to keep my house. And you're like, okay, well, you've clearly known about mediation for months, right? And so, yeah, it's about awareness and giving people the information so that they can make informed decisions
I
and the
agree.
best informed decisions.
Well,
So,
that's the thing is they have all the information and then that way they can make the best decision, but you need to have more information through this process.
yes.
And I always think of it as it should help you, not overwhelm you.
Yes.
Because instead of living in the unknown, or I wonder if this is accurate or not, or I think I can do this, it's real data that we can
Mhm.
provide so people can make really smart decisions on their behalf to
Yeah.
advocate for themselves during this time and they have no regrets.
Right. And that is key, right? It's like whether you keep the family home or you sell it or you're the one that moves out and your spouse keeps it, whatever that end result is, it's that
Mhm.
the client feels really good about the outcome, you
Yep.
know? And I've had lots of clients come to me and say, you know what? I never knew that this was possible. I never knew that I could go and buy a house and this could be my place for me and the kids. And, and I could be happy again. And, like, I think everyone envisions that they're going into poverty when they get divorced, right? And that they're going to have to go back to that 2-bedroom apartment that they were in college,
Right.
and it's just not the case. I think there's so many other viable options. And when we can provide our clients with that knowledge, it's empowering for them. So,
Yeah, I 100%. And I'll just say that when clients come to me and they say, I just want to keep the house, I will tell you what you need, how you need to settle, the numbers that you need to have in order to do that. And a lot of times they get teary eyed because it's all a guessing game up until that point. And there's, unfortunately, people who maybe aren't working or they're staying home with kids or they work part time, but they want to keep the house or they want to
mhm,
have a house. And so, how do we need to help them understand they can do that? We just have to settle the case correctly with the
mhm,
right numbers, all
yep,
of it. So, it's fantastic work, right?
it is.
Yeah,
I,
very
it's very gratifying. How many colleagues do we have? They're like, oh my gosh, how do you work in this space? And you're like, I love it. And then they
Mhm.
think that it's so strange, but it is such gratifying work.
It
So,
really is. You're really changing people's lives, their
mhm,
futures. I say their next chapters, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, I will say, Amy, I so appreciate your time because I know you're busy. And thank you for
Absolutely.
taking this time. And I just want to say how much I respect you. I think, I'm so fortunate to know you in this space. And thank you too, because you were integral in getting me involved in this divorce world. And I just wanted to say or ask you really if somebody wanted to get in touch with you or know more about you, if you could just maybe share a little bit about
Yeah.
how they could find you.
Yeah, so my website is perfect. It's amyalpeza.com. And I'm sure you'll have that written out because not everyone knows how to spell my last name. But yeah, amyalpeza.com, you can contact me on there and just get in touch.
Okay. And any final last thoughts that you might have before we leave today?
If you're listening to this podcast, whether you're a professional or whether you are a consumer, I think that you are in the right direction because the people in this community are all about supporting each other, whether it's the other professionals or it's the client. And so to have that support network around you from other like-minded professionals is amazing. So good for you.
Absolutely. That's very well said. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Well,
thanks for
again,
having me on.
thank you so much for doing this with me today. I so appreciate it. And I know I'll see you soon.
Thanks for joining us on Divorce Mortgage Strategies, powered by the Divorce Lending Association. If today's conversation brought you clarity, insight, or inspiration, we encourage you to subscribe and share this episode with others in your circle. For more resources, or to connect with a certified divorce lending professional in your area, visit divorcelendingassociation.com. And be sure to download the free Divorce Strategy Hub mobile app for tools, education, and support designed to guide you through the financial side of divorce. Until next time, remember, in divorce, the mortgage isn't the problem, it's the plan.